Welcome to hour number 2 of a Monday Live right here on the early line all across the SportsGrid network. That's SportsGrid. And that is Donnie right side, and I am Ben Stevens. The theme of this second hour, the theme really of this Monday show, basketball. All-star break in the association. But at this time, 4 weeks from right now, we will have a bracket for the 2024 NCAA tournament and what the field of 68 looks like, both for the men and the women as we get ready to go for March. Today is February 19th. In just a few short days, it will be March, and we will celebrate. It was a monumental weekend of college basketball where I think definitively we can say now, Donnie, Connecticut is the best team in the country, and it's not particularly close.
Yeah, and they really showed out on Saturday. We'll get to that game in just a little bit, but he saw some of the previews that Ben and I did on Friday, agreeing that, man, UConn is a really good team that we expect 30-point-plus wins and blowouts. No, we didn't here, but this is what you anticipate. Coming down the stretch of the Big East season here, you start to separate yourselves from the competition. There were a lot of question marks coming in on UConn, even though they're having a great season. Oh, Ben, they haven't played all that many teams yet, and just wait until they catch up and play a team like Marquette. Yeah, they waited, caught up, and blasted them at the XL Center. Looking forward to those UConn tickets moving forward here, Ben.
It was a top 5 tilt, a top 4 tilt in Hartford on Saturday that we'll look at in just a moment. Number one seemed like number one. That was UConn. As we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience here to start off hour number 2 of a Monday on the early line. He's Donnie. I am Ben. You're listening on Sirius XM Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. So the top-ranked Huskies, they look like the number 1 team in the land. The number 2 team in the country, the Purdue Boilermakers, who entered yesterday on a 9-game win streak into Columbus against an Ohio State program that had seen a very tumultuous week. The firing of head coach Chris Holtmann on Wednesday after 7 seasons at the helm of this Buckeyes men's basketball program. Jake Diebler steps in as the interim head coach. Ohio State booked as an 8.5-point home underdog yesterday against the Boilermakers. Ohio State entered, Donnie. It was part of the reason that Holtmann was let go at this juncture, losing 9 of its last 11 in Big Ten competition. Only 4 conference wins entering Sunday, but that all changed yesterday. Ohio State pulls off the upset outright, handing Purdue only its 3rd loss of the entire season, 73-69. The Buckeyes win outright with an interim head coach in Jake Diebler as an 8.5-point dog.
Yeah, tough scene, too. You take a look at Purdue here. You say, well, they probably didn't maximize their opportunities. They went 20 of 20 from the free throw line and lost that basketball game, which is incredible. And sometimes you can equate some football statistics, Ben, over to basketball. Protect the basketball. Win basketball games. You take a look at yesterday, Purdue wasn't able to do that, having 14 turnovers. And how about this? Only 6 turnovers for Ohio State protecting their home court. But my goodness, you take a look at Ohio State, 7 of 21 here, Ben, from three-point range, only 33%. And they only made 10 free throws to 20 made by Purdue and still came away with a victory here. Sometimes you like to get these losses out of the way because you can use them as teaching tools moving forward for Purdue. I didn't expect them to lose that game. I don't want to hear about any bounce that you get for the team that just fired their head coach. No, it's still a bad basketball program overall for Ohio State. That's how you got your head coach fired. But if we're just taking a look at Purdue's side of the equation, I'm really surprised by this. I didn't expect them to lose that basketball game yesterday, and they did. But then the questions start to creep in again on Purdue. And
here we go. Here we go. We'll get to that conversation in just a moment. I thought Purdue, the line was stinky. Only 8.5 for a team that had won 9 straight against a team that had just fired their head coach and dropped 9 of its previous 11 tilts. Yeah, only an 8.5-point spread, albeit on the road for the Boilers, was a little bit stinky, and it proved to be correct. Jake Diebler, by the way, a quick shout out to him. His brother John, the all-time 3-point leader for Ohio State, a name you probably remember, playing on the floor with Greg Oden and Mike Conley and Mark Titus throughout his time in Columbus. The all-time 3-point leader, not only for the Buckeyes, but all of Big Ten men's basketball in its history. Jake has been a member of Ohio State since he was hired as a video coordinator under Thad Matta in 2014. Then he was away from the Buckeyes for a little bit, came back under Holtmann in 2019, was named the associate head coach just a few years ago. First game as the interim head coach and he gets a victory over the second-ranked team in the country, a big moment for the Diebler family. So that's the good for Ohio State in a tough week. Now to Purdue. There's going to be a lot of people that make their jokes about the Boilermakers in a loss yesterday. It's difficult to win on the road in conference play, even against a bad Ohio State team this year. I am not overly concerned about the Boilermakers and their overall outlook. Still second best price to win a national championship, although $1.50 was added on following the loss yesterday at 8-1. The only thing I will say, in tight games at times, it seems the offense gets a little disjointed for Matt Painter, where there's almost too much of an emphasis on getting Zach Edey a touch when you can tell the defense is trying to take him out of the offensive scheme. And that's where guys like Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Lance Jones need to insert themselves a little bit more.
And by the way, it's a great point you bring up, too, because forget about Zach Edey down low. This is the new millennium here in college basketball, Ben. What do you have to separate yourself by doing? Yes, it's great you have Zach Edey. He can dominate on the low post. You got to shoot a lot of three-point shots in college basketball. Why? Analytically, it makes sense, but also, doesn't it open it up for your big man? How about if you get some guys that are actually launching from three-point range, you throw it into the low block, and they go, okay, let's double and triple Edey. You kick it back out for a three-point shot. You know what happens on the next possession? Edey doesn't get double-teamed here. You can't shoot limited amount of three-point shots here and expect success here, because you know what happens, Ben? You get into the tournament and go, well, what were we supposed to do? The other team shot 28 threes and made 16 of them. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's the equalizer in college basketball. I need to see more from the three-point line for Purdue, Ben.
Fair. 3 of 9 yesterday, and all it takes is one bad night and one sensational night from the other to pull off an upset in March. This all followed, by the way, the NCAA Selection Committee giving us a bracket preview on Saturday, where Purdue, despite being ranked second in the AP poll, was the number 1 overall seed in front of the number 1 team in the AP poll in the defending champions, the Connecticut Huskies. That's not going to be the case anymore. UConn dominant in Hartford on Saturday, 81-53 over 4th-ranked Marquette. That 28-point margin of victory, the largest ever in a conference matchup between two top 5 teams. They easily covered, did UConn, Donnie, as a 6.5-point favorite. More reactions on the other side of the break, but dominance once again for the Huskies, who have won 14 straight.
Yeah, we're going to go over why I thought this game was going to be a winner for the UConn Huskies, and sometimes it does work out exactly that way. You have to bring your shooting shoes with you on the road. Marquette didn't do that, and after the break, Ben, we'll go over exactly why that happened.
A big one for UConn and its overall outlook and its Big East title hopes as well. We break it all down next.
Player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like, you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilkes and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilkes' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Entering this weekend, it was a big one in college basketball. Saturday, an early bracket reveal, the top 16 teams in the country as the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee saw it. And the number one team in the bracket was Purdue. The Boilermakers upset on Sunday on the road in Columbus by Ohio State with an interim head coach. The number two team in the bracket reveal, still on the one line, the number one team in the country and the defending national champs, actually held up their end of the bargain. That, the UConn Huskies. Entering this weekend, Donnie, despite what the selection committee told us on Saturday afternoon, I think there was a prevailing thought around the country in men's college hoops that UConn was here, Purdue slightly under, and then the rest of teams around the country in terms of dominance and impressive in those margins around college basketball. Now I think it looks like this. UConn and everybody else around the country in college hoops. 81-53. The victory for the Huskies on Saturday afternoon in Hartford in a top four tilt against fourth-ranked Marquette, who entered winning 8 straight games. UConn entered winning 13 straight games. Make that 14 in a row for Dan Hurley's Huskies. They cover as a 6.5-point favorite. They have covered in 9 of the 14 games on this win streak as well. And now the question, Donnie, for UConn is not how good can they be this year. It's, are they better this year than they were even last year when they won a national championship?
That's the fun thing to talk about. Like, we just got done talking about the NBA in the Western Conference. Hey, can Minnesota, do the deal here? Can OKC surprise, maybe get the top seed and make a run to the NBA Finals? But we don't have any backtracking for that, Ben, right? It's like, hey, well, yeah, we just saw it last year. You know what we have in college basketball? Yeah, we saw UConn rip through the NCAA tournament and cut down the nets last year, and seemingly willing to do it again this year, sitting at 24-2. Now, getting back to Friday's show, we were anticipating this monster matchup on a Saturday,
right,
and we were going back and forth like, who has the actual edge in this game? And I thought UConn really did. So, of course they do. The higher-ranked team, they're at home. They should have the edge, favored by 6 or 7 points. But that doesn't mean you always win the basketball game or it's an easy matchup. The one thing that we do know is Marquette loves to shoot the three-point shot. The one thing that we also do know is UConn defends the three-point shot and loves to chase you off of that line. So when you just look at the box score to end that basketball game without the final score, 5 of 23 from the three-point line. We also knew that UConn is very aggressive and they will foul you. But the fact of the matter is, you take a look at Marquette, they love to shoot the three-point shot, which means they're not going into the paint, getting the N1s and getting to the free throw line. Look how many free throw shots they went. 6 of 8 from the free throw line. So if you're not going to have a great matchup at the three-point line or take advantage of the foul line, how could you possibly win these basketball games? Just by completely outplaying your opponent? That's not going to happen on a lot of occasions when you're playing a team as talented as UConn, who has the inside-outside game back. And also, keep in mind, some of the UConn games that we were watching early in the season when Klingon had that injury to his foot, like, ooh, when's he going to come back? Is he going to be the same? It takes you a couple of games to get underway. He was fantastic there on Saturday.
Fantastic.
So this team now has the inside game, the outside game, the defending game, and also goes, yeah, we won a championship last year with a coach that can certainly put you over the top. UConn has everything going from them right now and playing, Ben, their best basketball of the season coming at the right time.
Everything. Tristan Newton is a utility player and one of the best all around in college hoops. Reminds of Andre Jackson a year ago. Alex Caravan, a veteran wing for Dan Hurley's Huskies. Stephon Castle, an entirely talented freshman for UConn as well. And Donovan Klingon, 17 points, 10 boards against the Golden Eagles on Saturday. One of the best bigs, not only in the Big East, but all of college hoops. And UConn is doing this now in conference action, where last year it was non-conference play. Donnie, it's crazy to think on January 25th, a season ago, 2023, after falling to Xavier, UConn was 5-6 in Big East play. From that point, end of January last year, UConn has won 39 of 43 games overall. The Huskies are 24-2 this year. So impressive in their performances on this 14-game win streak. Connecticut is now officially the first odds-on minus money favorite to reach the Final Four in men's college basketball, and a plus 450 price to cut down the nets. Once again, the shortest number we have seen all season long. Connecticut trying to become the first back-to-back national champion in men's college hoops at the D1 level since Florida in 2006 and 07, and you can start to see the gap in the national championship prices. So let's spin it around the country from this weekend. Kansas, a big top 25 tilt on Saturday in Norman, Oklahoma against the Sooners. Kansas booked as a 2.5-point road favorite. Did not look like they would cover that number, being down 5 at the break, but they rally in the second. KU wins by double digits, 67-57 for a big victory over Oklahoma.
Yeah, rock fight there. You're not expecting these out of Kansas to say, let's go on the road, which we haven't been a great team overall in Big 12 play coming into this game at 7-5 overall. But you take a look at that, shot 50%, not from the field, Ben, from the free throw line, and then shot 31% from the three-point line and still able to win by double digits on the road. Sometimes winning ugly, you can certainly get a hand in that and say, you know what, moving forward, we can use this here. Dickinson was very good in that game, 20 points and 16 rebounds, sort of to pace that ugliness of the game. But even if Kansas, who's been struggling, they still have that pedigree, right? Like, nobody wants to take them out of the, look, they just don't have it this year. We understand how tough the Big 12 is. And if you can play your best basketball, no matter how you win at the end of the season in that conference, it's going to help you out. We're not leaving Kansas for dead just yet. That's a nice win by 10 points on the road and not even bringing their A game.
The race for the Big 12 title is going to be electric here down this home stretch of the season. KU now 8-5 in Big 12 play, but the Jayhawks looking up at two teams, both 9-3, the Houston Cougars and the Iowa State Cyclones, who face off on this big Monday in H-Town, where Houston was over the weekend, and they walloped Texas 82-61. The Cougs cover as a 10.5-point favorite. Houston now in Big 12 play, Donnie, has won 8 of their last 11. LJ Cryer, a game-high 26 points for the Cougars in the victory over the Longhorns on Saturday.
Remember a couple weeks back there, Houston was taking a couple losses. I kept telling you, this is exactly what I want here. Maybe that number gets a little bit longer here because people are finally saying, well, you don't get that easy run in the regular season, and you're not going to be as rested once you get to the tournament time. But I love the fact that every night it's a big game in the Big 12. And if you're the Houston Cougars, you got to love games like this. You're no longer that, they play in a different conference, and Texas always going to be the big dog here, Texas Tech here, Rice or whoever it might be, Baylor, who's going to have a better basketball team than you. Right. Houston is here on the biggest stage, doing it on the biggest stage. Yeah, Texas schools, man. You always look at Houston. Houston's that little secondary option, no big deal at this point. TCU. Come on, let's just load up every kid. How about this? Lamar's down there.
All Texas. Texas State.
Texas. We'll throw them in there anyway at this point. But Houston is going to do damage because why? Each and every game now in the Big 12, they're tested on a night-to-night basis. I like them even more than I did last year here as a possible team to cut down the nets.
Keep an eye on Big 12 powerhouse Rice. Outside of that, Houston a 9.5-point favorite tonight at home in the Fertitta Center against Iowa State. 127.5 is that total. Keep an eye on these two teams out of the SEC. They might be sleepers to win a national championship. A top 20 tilt on Saturday in Auburn. It was Kentucky versus the Tigers of Auburn on the plains in the jungle. And the Cats get a huge road victory. Kentucky victorious 70-59, winning outright as an 8.5-point underdog. A total of 164.5 stays under. Big for Kentucky, who has won 2 straight, covered in both have stayed under for a Cats team under John Calipari that has struggled to defend the basketball this season.
No, they really have, and that's what's surprising about this game is we were talking about tempo on Friday, and could we get there? We didn't get much tempo here. Why? Because Auburn was terrible on offense. 18% from three-point range here, 30% shooting as a team, and sometimes you'll find that, that's what happens. You go on the road in conference play, you don't shoot as well. This was a home game for Auburn with all that momentum behind them, and they come up with a 59 spot here. But this is also what I talked about on Friday when you're looking at Kentucky. This is one of those teams that I'm going to take a look at to possibly win a championship because of the talent they have. On a night-to-night basis, maybe we don't get the best effort, but if they can put together a string here towards March Madness, watch out. That ticket can turn into some cash if you bet them at a good price.
Big win for Duke, who's on a roll. Jared McCain, the freshman from Sacramento, a career-high 35 points and 8 triples as the Blue Devils get a win over Florida State. More around college hoops next.
Best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. You have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilkes and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilkes' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
4 weeks from this very moment, the bracket will be set for the 2024 NCAA tournament. The field of 68 will be revealed. We will take an early look at that March path live right here on this Monday on the early line on SportsGrid with our coach, James Young. JY joins us live right here on TEL. JY, before we get into the March path, we welcome you and we say hello, but I know you want to talk about something outside of who you like to reach a Final Four, how the bracket will lays out, or your reactions to the NCAA selection committee's early preview of the big dance. That was last night on Long Island at the UBS Arena between St. John's and Seton Hall. The Johnnies a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back for a 68-62 win. The Pirates winning outright as a 6.5-point underdog. JY, let's go part by part. First, let's highlight what Shaheen Holloway is doing in year number 2 for Seton Hall. Where is this Hall ball team as we get ready for March?
They're an extremely scary team depending on which Kadari Richmond shows up. And if you even look at the box score of the game last night, he did not do very much in the first half, and then he got rolling in the second half. But here's the key point that no one's going to talk about. I think it was the under 4 timeout. Seton Hall is getting blasted. Richmond drives to the basket. They call a charge. Shaheen Holloway storms almost all the way to midcourt and gets hit with a tech. Sometimes when you're a coach and you defend your best player, you galvanize your troops. And he galvanized his troops to play phenomenal defense in the second half. And what Shaheen has done is Shaheen has done what he's done at St. Peter's, right? Which is take a team with the worst facilities in the league and win. Why? Because his kids are tougher than your kids. And they showed it. St. John's got out of the way. The biggest mistake St. John's made, we'll get into Patino in a second. Joel Soriano was abusing Bianco in the first half. Bianco's got 2 fouls. All of a sudden, all these guards start jacking up shots, and then Soriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won last night in Long Island. By the way, don't go to UBS. That was a joke going out there. Half full arena, play the MSG. If you cancel at MSG, do it at Carnegie Arena. Stay out of Long Island.
All right, this isn't the Big East reaction show with James Young, so we'll get to the second part of that question because it was noteworthy. Shaheen Holloway, his Pirates, the embodiment of the way he coaches, toughness. Rick Pitino doesn't think his team embodies anything that he believes in philosophy-wise in college hoops. So second part of the equation, what did you make of Rick Pitino's post-game comments about his St. John's team?
Trash. As a coach, one thing you don't do is you don't throw your kids under the bus, especially college kids. Now, in NBA, it's a little bit different. So here's the thing I'm going to say to you, Rick. Number one, you have the guy from Vitamin Water, and you got the over $1 million in NAL, right? These are kids that you brought in. You brought in from the transfer portal, including 2 of your guys from Iona. You went and got Dingle. You got Ledlam. You got Soriano to stay, right? So these are, first off, your kids that you brought in, that you were trashing. You're trashing the facilities that you chose to take a big money contract to go and coach. So now I'm going to say to you this, Rick. How can any handler, how can any AAU coach, how can any parent look you in the eye after you just ripped your team for their performance? There's a phrase I've been told a long time. Players win them, coaches lose them. You go to the mic, you accept blame and responsibility for what happened, you tell the people how you're going to fix it, and then if you want to rip them in practice like Shaheen Holloway did after Villanova, you do that. You don't throw your kids under the bus ever.
And by the way, the interesting part about that too, Coach, is that they sort of asked him the question to get out of it. Is like, oh, wow, are you unhappy that you took this job at St. John's? He goes, no. I'm happy with St. John's. I just don't basically like my basketball team who's unathletic, and it's not my fault that we're blowing games late. So we'll see how that plays out down the stretch. But an interesting ploy by Rick Pitino to sort of, I guess, fire his team up for the back stretch by absolutely telling his team they stink and can't play. And I can't wait to probably out-recruit you next season, and you'll be in the portal yourself. We'll see if that works out in their favor. But the one thing that is going to work out in 1 week here, that's March and March Madness. Coach, if we're looking at some of the top seeds here coming down the stretch, give me the top 4 seeds for you as we look towards March Madness.
Well, number one, folks, UConn's the best team in the country, and they are just bludgeoning. What they did to Marquette was absolutely criminal on Saturday. By the way, shout out to Cam Spencer riling up Tyler Kolek up 30. That was a real classy move. We'll see what happens in that rematch. I guarantee you Shaka's team will be better off. Obviously, I look at a team like Houston as well. I think they're starting to play better. I know they have a big game tonight. They're defending really, really well. Listen, Purdue got caught in a buzzsaw yesterday. Obviously, with Holtzman getting fired from Ohio State. I still think they're a top 4 team in the country because Zach Edey is that good. And if they could just get the perimeter guards to shoot the ball really, really well, I think that's a team that can go really far. Arizona's quirky, but when you start looking at, to me, it's like you have those 2 top teams, and then it's Houston, and then it gets a little bit crazy. For me, Arizona should be a team that should get the 1 seed because they should come out of the Pac-12 tournament, and their resume should lead themselves to getting a 1 seed going into the tournament. I just don't think they're going to make it to the Final Four.
Not a lot of quad 1 opportunities left for Arizona based on the Pac-12. Really only Washington State, who might be one of the best stories this year around the country in college basketball. But because of what the Cats did during the non-conference portion of their season, the resume is very strong. So, JY, those were the expected number 1 seeds as you think the committee will lay it out in the bracket. 3 of those 4 teams you have reaching the Final Four. The only difference from Arizona on the 1 line to a team to reach those Final Four spots, that would be the Kansas Jayhawks. What stands out to you about KU?
Well, I think the play of Hunter Dickinson is going to be important, but to me, it's the other guys. It's as my kids just decide that they're going to FaceTime Daddy the whole entire morning. Sorry for that, folks. But when you come down to Kansas, Hunter Dickinson, Bill Self has been there before. They have the guard play. They have Abrams. They have enough in the tank to me. And plus, I do think, Ben, playing that gauntlet of a schedule in the Big 12 lends itself to be being prepared for March. And the fact that you got to play Houston twice, you got to play Iowa State twice, you got to play Texas Tech twice, you got to play teams, folks, that play really solid half-court man-to-man defense. And I think Bill Self will be there. His team will be there. Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks, 5-1. They make it to the Final Four.
We take a look here moving forward to March Madness. The one thing that we do love about that are the sleepers and the Cinderella slippers that can be pushed on. If you take a look at teams that maybe are outside of the box here, Coach, who are we looking at to maybe can get to the Final Four and win a national championship here?
Well, shout out to myself because Ben's going to be mad that I basically gave almost like a favorite as a team that's going to make a sleeper run to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Let's start off with Auburn. Now, I like this team. I like Bruce Pearl. I think with them, the concern with them is always road games, road play. They're tough. They are rugged. They can defend. Secondly, Kentucky. Here we go, folks. With Kentucky, it comes down to, do they have the maturity and the defense to play? Because they have the guard play and they have the scorers to do so. They showed it over the weekend with their best defensive performance all season. I'm going to go to Creighton. I think, if I'm not mistaken, UConn Creighton tonight, huge game in the Big East. Creighton with Kalkbrenner at the center position, Alexander Shireman. They have enough guys. They have a big, they have a couple of guards. They can get busy. And then ready, folks, the sleeper of all sleepers. I know you lost yesterday. I've liked what I've seen out of Mick Cronin's team lately in UCLA. Folks, their defense has been fantastic. I know they lost at the buzzer yesterday, but Mick's got them playing well defensively. And to me, a team that can defend, and with those odds, I got to take a chance.
So a couple of things there. UConn and Creighton women face off today. Tomorrow, it will be UConn on the road in Omaha against Creighton on the men's side.
That was close.
I mean, you got to know that, though. UCLA at 350 to 1. Are they even going to make the NCAA tournament for that price to be a part of the factor? That's a huge part of the consideration. My issue with Auburn, the team that ranks 7th in the Ken Palm ratings and is tied for the 6th best price to win a national championship at 20 to 1, is not technically a team that I would qualify as a sleeper. And Kentucky's the team that beat Auburn on the road in the jungle on Saturday. And it's Kentucky. The word sleeper has never been used for the Cats when it comes to the NCAA tournament. I had Creighton in my sleeper list on Friday, so I can't fault you there, JY.
Oh, my goodness. The slander that's coming out of Ben Scott Stevens this morning. I'm a little concerned. I listen, okay, you're right. UCLA may not make it. But if they do, that's a big
They got to win the Pac-12 tournament.
They probably do have to win the Pac-12 tournament. And we don't even know, honestly, Ben, how many at-large bids are even going to get in the Pac-12 because they've not shown themselves to be a strong conference this year. Absolutely right. Even a team like Colorado, who are like early in the year, may not make it. But Kentucky still is a sleeper because everybody, including me, was trashing them until Saturday night. I'm back on the Kentucky train. On the train.
Still one of the 10 best prices to win the title at 30 to 1 as well. We'll go back to All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis around the association with JY. He joins us for a second straight segment up next. Come back and join us on the early line.
Best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games. It's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, Noah Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilkes and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilkes' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line, it's Ben, it's Donnie, it's JY for a second consecutive segment. Our coach gives us his scouting report at the NBA All-Star break. JY, we have a couple of days without action in the association. NBA games do not resume until Thursday evening, which gives us a time to reset and look at the home stretch of this NBA regular season. We'll get some of your thoughts moving forward, but before we do that, we look back one final time at last night's All-Star game in Indianapolis. A historic offensive output, 211 points from the Eastern Conference, the first ever team to score 200 or more in a All-Star game. The most points ever scored in an All-Star game, 397 combined. Total of 356 goes way over, and the Eastern Conference gets a win. JY, did you enjoy it? Do you think there needs to be fixes to the All-Star game moving forward? What is your overall assessment based on what we saw last night in Indy?
I thought it sucked. I'll be honest with you. I don't like it. 200. The only person that likes the All-Star game is Kevin Walsh on his network. I think Kevin needs to get his head checked after watching that performance. I mean, I would watch a fourth grade CYO basketball game and pay money for that rather than watch what I saw last night. There's no defense. No one cares. And Edwards basically talked about it. LeBron James, the GOAT, took, 4 out of 10 in 14 minutes? Luka takes 10 shots. All right, let's just have Karl Anthony Towns shoot the ball 492,000 times in a game. That's exactly what I wanted to see. So I'm going to say this, folks. I'm going to stop this right now. It sucks. The whole thing I don't like about it, I got the solution. I've talked about this before in the network. USA versus the world in an all-star game. There will be bragging rights. There will be, these guys will actually have to go for it. And then the MVP, whatever it's $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever, you donate the MVP portion, their money, towards a charity of their choice. Look at what happened in the FIBA World Cup. We don't win it. Now, all of a sudden, the Olympics, everybody wants to show up. Bragging rights, pride of country. How about pride of country in the All-Star game? USA versus the world. And I'll tell you this much right now. I don't even know if the USA wins that game versus the world.
How about this, Coach? How about we just do away with the All-Star game? A nice steak dinner on a Saturday night. You throw a comedian up there. He roasts everybody in the crowd. Then you move forward and you play a basketball game on Monday and Tuesday. We'll have an entire week off here for the NBA. So I think that makes much more sense. But if we are looking at NBA All-Star weekend, a lot of things were going around it, not particularly the All-Star game itself. The slam dunk competition. Now, me and JY in that same age bracket here. And I know it's sometimes, hey, old man yelling at cloud. But I can remember in the 80s and early 90s, getting together, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, going over to somebody's house and could not wait for the dunk competition to come on, the three-point competition, even the All-Star game. I don't think it's ever going to get back to that. But if we give you the dunk competition, JY, is it worth saving? Or, hear me out on this, and this is where we bring in Kevin Walsh because I know he hates this. Here's what I do. I go and say, you know what? We're big on Twitter. We're big on X here. We do a poll here on the SportsGrid Network. Let's put a poll out from the NBA side and say, I'm going to give you 4 options here that you can vote on. And we'll vote in the top superstars in the dunk competition, whether they like it or not. So if LeBron James is number 1 and he has to perform in the dunk competition and he doesn't, JY, and I'm the commissioner, 10-game suspension without pay, and you might not be able to play in the playoffs here. That's how we handle it, Coach. What do you think? What do you think?
You had me in the beginning with the Twitter
Come
and
on.
that. I thought you could do is there's always these YouTube guys, these YouTube dunkers, whatever. Do a regional competition, and you take about the top 2 or 3 YouTube dunkers that's been voted upon, some kind of competition, and put them in the slam dunk contest versus a couple of guys, maybe G League guys, maybe Mac McClung, maybe something like that. But the slam dunk contest, I don't know if you can save it. 3-point contest, very simple. Go back to the old rules. I didn't know what points, what mattered, what counted for what. Just go back. 5 racks, 4 balls, money ball, keep it moving, 1 minute on the clock. But the best part of the All-Star weekend, honestly, was Sabrina Ionescu versus Steph Curry. I actually, that's the one thing I made sure I watched live because I wanted to see if Sabrina won, and here's what I would do next year. who's the biggest star in women's basketball? Caitlin Clark. Next year, Caitlin Clark, Steph Curry. 3-point shootout. And if you want to go semifinals and finals, other semifinal, Dame Time, Anescu. Those 4 come down, play the final 2. I think that would actually get people excited for All-Star Weekend in the 3-point contest.
That was Reggie Miller's idea on the TNT broadcast of the All-Star game last night, a team competition between Sabrina Ionescu and Caitlin Clark versus Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. And there could be many more added to the field. You talk about pride, that would certainly be that. Damian Lillard, the back-to-back 3-point contest winner, all a part of a big weekend in Indianapolis. Also 39 points in the All-Star game, and that All-Star game MVP award named after Kobe Bryant. It hasn't been the most successful start in Milwaukee for Dame. Can this be any bit of momentum, JY, for Damian Lillard entering the home stretch for the Bucks after the All-Star break?
Are they firing Doc Rivers before the playoffs, or are they keeping him? That's the caveat. I mean, listen, they're keeping him. I mean, Donnie Rightside knows where I'm going with this. This is Donnie Rightside's favorite coach in basketball, Glenn Doc Rivers. Here's what I'll say, folks. I think they'll play better in the regular season because Doc does go for it in the regular season. My concern is playoff time, adjustments, matchups, and do they have enough defenders in the half court, particularly at the guard spot? That's going to be their Achilles heel. I think they go over their win total of 51.5, but they do not win the East. And I can say this, folks, it will depend on the matchup. Right now, if it ended today, it would be Milwaukee versus Indiana, a team that's owned before they were playing better defense, Milwaukee. Who's tied for in the loss column right now? How about Miami? You think you're not, listen, I know this team is flaky, but when that thing turns on to the playoffs, Spoelstra's better than anybody about getting the Bulls out of his team. So Milwaukee, man, I'm sorry. I cannot buy into anything with them positive except going over their win total of 51.5.
Some are saying, though, Coach, that Doc looked really good. Offensive sets were straight last night. Easy win in the All-Star game. Maybe it's a springboard to the second half. He can handle a ton of superstars. He can do it all. But let's take a look at secondary options, teams that can cross over and take out the Milwaukee Bucks. If we exclude the Boston Celtics here, we're looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers and also the New York Knicks. Coach, talking about those two teams heading down the stretch, who gets the nod for you to finish above each other in the standings?
Well, if you really look at it, and when you go down the standings, the Knicks have, I think, the 14th toughest schedule. Cleveland has 15th. And there's only one matchup, I do believe, between the two teams. So that's going to be close. Now, when it comes down to who I like out of those two in the playoffs, give me New York. Why? I just don't believe Cleveland has fixed all of its problems with their two big acquisitions of, obviously, Georgia's Niang, and going to get Max Strus. I don't think that's enough for a team that got bully balled by the Knicks in the playoffs last year. So I'm concerned with them. And also the fact that I don't know if that two small guard, Darius Garland, Jalen Brunson, you hear that, Knicks fans? Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if that works, right? They're too small. And then the double barrel big system of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, I don't think that works. New York, folks, may have, ready for this, the most depth in the league. I'm not saying they're the best. I'm not saying they got a superstar best player in the series. I'm saying depth 1 through 10, if healthy, New York's got more than anybody. So that should mean less minutes for the big superstars. They got defenders to protect Brunson and Randall with OG and Anunoby. I think the Knicks are the sleeper team to come out of the Eastern Conference.
Here's how things stack up from the Eastern Conference title odds right now. Boston, the best team in the NBA, 43-12 at the All-Star break, approaching even money, plus 124 Boston to win the Eastern Conference crown. $2 behind the Milwaukee Bucks at plus 320. Then it's the Knicks, plus 650, third best number, a full $1 in front of the Cavs at plus 750 before we get a large drop-off to the Sixers at 14-1, and then beyond that, the Miami Heat, a 16-1 number. Now we go to the Western Conference, where things are a little bit more jumbled at the top. JY, we have spoken about this multiple times throughout this NBA season already. It is going to be a focus down the home stretch. the two up-and-coming teams at the top of the Western Conference standings. Minnesota, best record in the West, 39-16, a full game and a half clear of the Oklahoma City Thunder, second best mark in the Western Conference, 37-17. 8-1 for both the T-Wolves and the Thunder. Those two prices behind the Nuggets, the Clippers, and the Suns. So as you look at Minnesota and Oklahoma City in their outlook in this playoff push, what is the ceiling, JY, for both the T-Wolves and the Thunder?
Honestly, if they go past the second round, Ben, I think it would be fantastic for teams that really haven't been there yet and haven't shown that they can show up in this spot. To me, Ben, the bigger takeaway that I have is this. It's all going to come down to matchups. So if you look at right now, right, you have a one side of the bracket right now, as of today. You have Oklahoma City, the Clippers, New Orleans, and Dallas on one side, right? Let's just say 1 through 8, they just all making them on their seating, right? The other side, you have Minnesota, Denver, Phoenix, and then Sacramento. So out of those, who's got the better draw? Maybe Oklahoma City right now. But I think that's the hard part is you're going to see this market, Ben, move according to who's in what slot. Because they got to figure out who you got to go through to get to the next round. To me, you know I've said this for a while. I think the Clippers, if they're healthy and Harden doesn't act stupid, it's them because I also believe in Tyronn Lue. Phoenix, it's about their health and their age. Denver, can they turn it back on? I don't believe in Dallas. I don't believe in the Lakers. I think Golden State's done. So Minnesota and Oklahoma City, to me, it's going to come down the stretch. Remember, folks, both of them I think they're in the lower half and easier schedules the rest of the way. Phoenix, number 1 in strength of schedule left. They have the hardest schedule left in the NBA. And if you look at them, they are tied for 5th. They could get themselves down to 7 or 8 because that schedule is a bear coming down the stretch.
It's interesting the way you look at it, too, Coach. You take a look at the loss. That was good. Yes, Coach. Let me throw in a little Los Angeles Lakers here for you quickly. LeBron James last night on the telecast before the game said they're gunning for that 6th seed. They're 3.5 games back. Yeah. Can they get to that 6th seed and avoid those playing rounds?
I mean, anything's possible with the Lakers, but they still have to go through Minnesota twice, Oklahoma City once, right? So they're playing for something. Cleveland once, Clippers once, Denver once, Milwaukee twice. Yes, could the Lakers do it? Yes, but it's going to be upon how much can LeBron take this team on his back and carry them. LeBron understands you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're in a playing game and you're about 2 games away, bad performance of not making it. Yes, they get the 6. I don't know if he can carry them to 6. And that's not a knock on him. That's a knock on his teammates.
JY, we appreciate the time as always. Hit a little fadeaway to break if you wouldn't mind. We round out hour 2 by hearing from you now.
Best player in the NBA until proven otherwise. Like you have that guy on your team, you win 50 games, it's really that simple.
There is voter fatigue, and I think that is the only thing you have to be careful about when you deal with the NBA is there voter fatigue in regards to who should win the MVP? When you look at the odds, and obviously you get, no Halliburton.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8, right? This is going to fall 6, 7, or 8. 6 you lose, 7 you push, 8 you win. So it's going to come down to the end.
And he missed the 3, and they are not going to foul. They're not going to foul. He just drove and scored, though. Oh, they gave up a dunk with 14.1 to go.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here to end out hour number 2. Everybody is up and at 'em on this Monday morning to start off a new week. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside, and this is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. Scan that QR code on your screen. It is the end of hour 2. It is the start, really, of the All-Star break, where we had All-Star festivities Friday, Saturday, the All-Star game yesterday on a Sunday evening in Indianapolis. Now just 3 days without any association basketball. It gives us that time to reset and to hear from you about how you forecast the rest of this NBA season in 2023-24. We do that now in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid TV on Twitter, what is the best NBA Finals forecast bet? Where you pick the two teams, the winner of the East, the winner of the West, that will face off in the NBA Finals. The most likely number right now, plus 550, is for the two favorites in both the conferences and the NBA championship odds, the Celtics to take on the Nuggets. Then it's the Bucks and the Clippers, the Celtics and the Suns, or if there was an other, we asked you to reply, and we got a few replies, like Rocky Childress saying, I like the Celtics versus the Clippers. I like that option. Most of the public, 46% of the public, Donnie, going with Boston versus Denver.
Yeah, and probably rightfully so. But at the same time, are we really thinking that the Nuggets are on track to a repeat here with how tough the Western Conference has been? So that's an interesting price at a plus 550, but I'd sort of look down the list a little bit more. 17.6 was the number I was looking for. That's the Celtics versus the Suns. Because also, I wanted to take myself a nice little chunk here. Not go 5-1, 10-1. I want a 16-1 price here. Because if I think the big three can get it together and stay healthy for Phoenix, a legitimate chance they can get to the NBA Finals, that's where my vote went, Ben.
That's exactly where I went as well. I've got a Suns ticket to win the NBA championship that we'll talk about when hour 3 starts in just about a minute, live right here on the Early Line.